And on this Thursday morning, thanks for joining us. As always, it is very much appreciated. We are happy to be joined by Jeff Howe from The Athletic. We've got 30 minutes with Jeff, so we're going to try to keep it to 30 minutes, talk about this draft, Patriots point of view, maybe some other things about some other teams. But, Jeff, I first wanted to get your thoughts, and, of course, thanks for joining us. Elliot Wolf just had his press conference, the pre-draft press conference. He said he feels like the roster could currently support a rookie quarterback. What is your assessment of this current roster?
It's got a whole lot of holes to fill before a rookie quarterback or any quarterback can come in and be expected to have success. And if you want to have a top 20 offense, there are still some holes to fill. You need a better offensive line. You need some help out wide. And the other part too, again, I feel like a broken record when I say this stuff. You got to develop the quarterback. And it doesn't matter whether you're in New England or wherever. It doesn't matter who you bring in or how talented they are. If you don't have the support system in place to grow and develop this player for the course of multiple years, that's not going to matter anyway. So I'm not saying the Patriots are not in position to develop quarterback coaching wise. That's, still very much to be determined. But that's a big piece of it too.
So I'll have more of my thoughts on Elliot Wolf's press conference on tomorrow's podcast. I do want to focus on the draft and what's happening right now, what Jeff is hearing. So I'll have my thoughts on Elliot Wolf tomorrow. Let's get to business today with Jeff. Post-combine, Jeff, you wrote the Patriots were leaning heavily towards a quarterback at number 3. Today, is that still the case?
I would fall off of this chair that I'm sitting on right now if they didn't take a quarterback at 3. I think they are in a really good spot to get either Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever falls to them. I wouldn't entirely rule out J.J. McCarthy. I think that's a much longer shot. I really think it's between May and Daniels. And I've said enough nice things about both of those players over the last several months that I think, again, the Patriots are in a really good spot here. It's sort of like, I forget if I've used this analogy with you in the past, but it's almost like that Greg Oden, Kevin Durant draft. You don't want to be the team at number 1 because you have a chance of screwing it up. You take the guy who's there at number 2, and you just get ready for rookie camp a week and a half later.
So you just mentioned McCarthy. Now, it's interesting. You go back to last week, Jeff. In the McCarthy smoke, there was a lot of it. It seems like it's died down a little bit over the past few days. That smoke, was there legit fire at Gillette Stadium with J.J. McCarthy?
For starters, at least from the intel I've been able to get, this is when teams are really, shutting things down. Like, they don't want their preferences or who they like to be out there. And that stuff is, if smoke starts to leak, you have to wonder why it's coming out now. So I just try to be consistent with the information that I get and pass along. If I'm talking to somebody for several months and all of a sudden their opinion changes in the month before the draft, that gets me to raise an eyebrow. I'm certainly not rushing Twitter to get that stuff out there because I don't think the clicks are as important as the information that you're passing along. Now, there are people around the league who think that J.J. McCarthy could be in play at 2 or 3. I just think those people, from what I've found, are few and far between. So McCarthy still, from what I've been able to gather and learn about these quarterbacks, is still a tier below Daniels and May. And it would be a pretty big surprise if McCarthy was the guy at 3.
Speaking of surprises, Jeff, earlier this week, last-minute visit from Michael Penix here at Gillette Stadium. What should we make of that?
You got to cover all your bases. You owe it to yourself, whether you're the Patriots or anybody, to if you're heavily invested in the quarterback market, you've got to look at all these guys. And let's say all of a sudden, the Patriots are going into this saying, we're taking Daniels or May, whoever is there for us, and we're going to be very happy with that. But then all of a sudden, the Vikings come up with their 2 first-rounders and next year's first-rounder and Justin Jefferson. Something like so exorbitant that you just have to be like, oh my god, of course we're going to take that. And now, you go into all right, so now you go to 11, and is 11 where you want to take Penix? I don't know, but whatever. Let's say you address a couple other needs, and then Penix is still there at 34, and then you're like, oh my goodness, all of the other quarterbacks are off the board. What are we going to do here? We didn't even interview this guy. So
right.
You have to play out Like, just because you bring in a Michael Penix a week before or 2 weeks before the draft doesn't mean that he's necessarily in play at 3, but you've got to make sure that you know what you're comfortable with all the possibilities, even the long shot ones at 34.
Jeff Howe from The Athletic is with us. You all know Jeff. You can follow him on Twitter as well. Let me take a second before we move forward with some more questions for Jeff. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. If you're watching the podcast, if you like the content, love the content, we are trying to expand the brand. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up to smack the algorithm in the face at YouTube. Also subscribe as well. Over 3,000 subscribers now. Let's continue to march. Our next goal is 3,500. And if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Pods, rate and review. All right, Jeff, a lot of talk about Jaden Daniels. You know, you've said that the Patriots, you'd be shocked if they don't take a quarterback at 3. A lot of talk about Daniels to Washington practically being a done deal. What have you heard? Do you think it's Daniels at 2?
I'm hesitant to call it a done deal. I think there are other people who certainly feel stronger about that, and I'm not refuting that whatsoever. I still think that there is a case to be made for Drake May at 2. If I was doing a mock draft right now, I would put Daniels at 2. Thankfully, I have about a week before I have to put my version of my mock draft out there. But that's what this week and the early days of next week is all about. Just trying to figure out the best you can what's going to happen. And of course, we're still throwing darts, but I promise you, I'm doing the best I can to try to figure this out. Look, I think there's a lot to like about Daniels, and I've got some intel that I kind of want to save for next week. So I can't put it all out there. But there are things to be intrigued about. I mean, I love the mobility, the fact that he can make plays off schedule, the fact that, he's got a really good arm, a plus arm. And even while he's adjusting to the NFL speed, which every rookie quarterback is going to be doing, he can do a lot of things to buy time, to make plays with his legs, to maneuver about the pocket. I think that's going to accelerate his learning curve. And I mean, he's going to be a really, real fun prospect, whether it's in Washington or New England.
Whether it's your gut or intel, and you could certainly tell us setting your answer up here, Elliott Wolf, if it's Daniels or May, which one? Because we've heard they'll be fine with either one, Jeff. And I said this on the podcast yesterday. The way I read that is they have to have a favorite. They have to be leaning towards somebody over, someone else. But they probably have these guys graded very similarly. And they probably look at them and say, we feel like both guys are fine with being drafted at 3. We could live with either guy at 3 because of our grades, but they've got to be leaning towards somebody. It's only human nature. If you had a guess, or maybe you have some intel, would it be May or would it be Daniels if both guys in a crazy world were sitting there at 3 and Elliott Wolf had to make that decision?
Well, just taking it one step further, I mean, again, being prepared for every possible scenario. If Washington goes J.J. McCarthy, you have to have one of those guys rated above the other. So you have to be absolutely ready to make that decision. So there's a case to be made for both. And I swear, I'm not trying to sit on the fence with this, but when I talk to, as the draft process has evolved, 3 months ago, I thought it was a lock that Drake May was going to go 2 and Daniels was kind of putting himself in position to be at 3. Now it seems like, again, looking at the consistency of these conversations and the way they've changed and getting a view from a whole bunch of teams around the league, it seems like Daniels is the preferred player. So that tells me that Daniels would probably be their pick if they had the choice between both. But the thing you really got to like about Drake May is, and I've made this point with you before, you look at 6'4", 230 or upper 220s, and the big arm and enough mobility to run a modern style NFL offense. But you look at just the physical qualities and wanting to put that player in the Northeast. I mean, you could not find a better prototypical sized quarterback to play in the New England weather, to be able to throw the ball, cut it through the wind in December and January, assuming you get back to playing games in that month. And I'm not doing this to sit on the fence. I just think that they are two different types of players, and there's a lot to like about both of them. And that's why I just kind of keep going back to my original point. They're in a good spot.
All right, let's look at the 3 pick. And you mentioned that the Patriots would have to be overwhelmed to deal that 3rd pick. So let me throw a scenario at you. Minnesota has 11 and 23. We've talked about that deal now for weeks. Also, the 2025 first round pick has been thrown into the mix. Do you think that would be enough? Would 11-23 in next year's first be enough? Or if not, would they be looking at, Jeff, would the Patriots be looking at maybe, hey, if you throw in Justin Jefferson or Christian Darrisaw, their young tackle, where they can kind of plug and play him on the left side, would the Patriots need more picks and a player? Like what kind of haul are we talking about for the Patriots to seriously entertain moving from 3 to 11?
If you include Jefferson, I would start to say, I would really genuinely start thinking about it. I mean, I think that's a pipe dream. I don't think it's realistic, but like I wouldn't do it for the 2 first rounders. I wouldn't move back to 11 and 23. If you start to include next year's first round pick, I still wouldn't do it because as we've said, I'm high on both of these quarterbacks. But if you use like 2 first round, I mean, even if 11 in Jefferson, you start to think about like what you could do, what you could turn that offense into. I wouldn't care. I would happily make Justin Jefferson the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history, probably the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. He's that good, everybody knows. And so, yeah, I would be very reluctant to move back from 3 just because those quarterbacks are there. Now, if you're Elliott Wolf and that entire front office and you aren't 100% sold on both quarterbacks, you think like, all right, this might be the guy, but we have some question marks. Then you bend a lot more.
Right.
And you just keep putting it out there. Hey, we're taking a quarterback. We're taking a quarterback. We're taking a quarterback until somebody gives you some ridiculous offer that or not even a ridiculous offer, I guess, at that point. But I don't know. I hope I'm not like contradicting myself or mumbling over my words here, but like Jefferson would be an absolute game changer for me.
All right. We'll get more with Jeff in a minute. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Incredibly important to the podcast, the program, trying to grow this community. So give us that thumbs up on YouTube. Let's drop kick that algorithm in the face. And subscriptions, always a big deal as well. Rate and review, Spotify, Apple Pods. Before we get back to Jeff, more on the draft, I want to remind you the Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Warzone 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land. We're talking multiple villages, a trench warfare map, hilltop forts. They've got paintball. They've got airsoft. They've got kid versions of paintball and airsoft, something for every age group starting at 6+. Just show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They take care of the rest. 4.9 star rating online, casual, low key. Check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft in North Kingston, Rhode Island. So if you're in that area or don't mind traveling to that area as the weather warms up, want to have some fun with friends, head on out to Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Give them a call at 401-228-6366. That's 401-228-6366. Let them know that the Nick Cattle Show sent you. All right, so we just talked about Minnesota, Jeff. Any other teams? Could you envision, like to me, I don't think Denver has the ammo, right? They don't have a second-round pick. They just don't have a lot to offer for the third pick unless we're talking about, players, Cortland Sutton, the 12th pick, a third-round pick, next year's first and second, unless they go bananas. Any other teams? We know the Raiders have been mentioned. They supposedly love Jaden Daniels with Antonio Pierce, that link. Any other teams that you could see as likely or at least a decent chance of moving up to 3 and making a deal with the Patriots if the Patriots were open-minded to do so?
I would look at the Giants, maybe, if they want to get real aggressive, because then if you're moving out of 3, that tells me you're not fully comfortable. You're not fully on board with Daniels or May. And if that's their evaluation, fine. Like you accept that and you try to figure out what's the best course of action from there. If you move down to 6, now you can still get either Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. So you're going to get a number 1 wide receiver basically by like week 1 of his rookie season, or you're going to get a franchise left tackle for what they would hope is 8 to 10 years. So that would be a spot where I would be more comfortable trading back. Arizona's not going to trade up. I can't imagine the Chargers are going to trade up. So, I don't think the Titans are going to move. I see no reason why the Falcons would move because they're probably going defense and they can probably get the best defensive player available at 8.
Right.
The Bears, like, it would be counterproductive to what they've done over the last 18 months to move up from 9. You're certainly not going to allow the Jets to trade up. So, yeah. And then again, sort of like what we were talking about with the Vikings and moving back to 11, like moving back that far would make me uncomfortable. So I think realistically, it's like the Giants, or you're staying at 3, or the Vikings with some preposterous offer.
Makes a lot of sense.
I will say, just to build on what you said about the Broncos, I think they're going to be a bad team this coming season. So if they offer next year's number 1 and 12 or 13, wherever they are, then, that's a start. It would require a whole lot more. But if the Broncos want to move up to 3, again, not saying this is realistic. I think this is an extreme long shot, but that's a team that I think has a realistic possibility of drafting in the top 3 next year. So if you talk about including next year's first round pick, that could be a gold mine.
Now, Jeff, look, I'm a stick and pick guy. I'm a stick and pick guy at 3. My guy is Drake May. That's who I want in this draft. If I'm the Patriots, if I'm Elliott Wolf, and I think that's who Wolf wants. Just speculation. I'm not talking to people at Gillette, but going off of the Ron Wolf philosophies and what May projects to be if they develop him correctly and he fixes some of those mechanical things, I'm a stick and pick and pick May there at 3 if he's there. With that said, my second favorite option, I want your thoughts on this. My second favorite option for this draft is going full Monty. The full Monty is Monty Ossenfort last year with Arizona. When he moved down, he moved back up. Arizona had the 3rd pick, just like the Patriots. They moved down to 12, and then they moved back up to 6. And I look at that and I wonder, the first question is, how difficult, you talk to guys in the league, how difficult is something like that to pull off first and foremost?
I think that would require a series of trades because I don't think the Giants are going to want to move back from 6 to 12 or wherever the Patriots would be coming up from. So you'd be talking about moving back, which is, again, I have no problem with that theory. Again, assuming that they are not comfortable with both quarterbacks, that they can get there. And I'm with you. I'm in the stick and pick category too. So that would require the Patriots moving from 3 to wherever, and then the Giants probably moving from 6 to 4, and then the Cardinals, because they do want to move back, and having done it already, like I think the Cardinals would absolutely move back twice to continue accumulating as many picks as possible. So yeah, it would require a couple trades from the Patriots, but it would also require at least one other big trade, which is not out of the realm of possibility at all. But I don't think I would be, talking about being shocked if the Patriots didn't go quarterback. I would be shocked if the Giants were willing to move that far out of 6.
Jeff, Elliott Wolf this morning, he talked about how this is a unique quarterback class, and he was impressed by all 6 guys. He didn't name them, but I think we know them, right? I think it's Caleb, it's Daniels, it's May, it's McCarthy, it's Penix, it's Nix. What have you heard? Like, generally speaking, when you talk to guys around the league, scouts, executives, coaches, do they think this quarterback class is as deep as some are trying to make it seem? Or do they think, listen, there's really 2 or 3 guys here, and then everything else is just BS?
I strongly now there are, look, depending on who you talk to, and I was actually texting with some friends earlier, and I was like, it's like every conversation I've had this week, I keep changing my opinion about what's going to happen at 2 and 3. So it's like everything sort of continues to evolve, and it's sort of a crazy couple of weeks here. But kind of going off the consensus, I really believe that there's the Caleb Williams tier, there's the May Daniels tier, and then you drop it off from there. I think, Penix has some extremely exciting attributes, but few and far between the amount of people who have a first round grade on him. So that would tend to make me believe that he could get overdrafted. I talked to somebody who said they could see McCarthy going as high as 2, or they could see him free falling. Maybe not in a Will Levis type of situation, but yeah. I mean, if he doesn't go, let's say, in the 4 to 6 range, then what happens? And so it's man, there's just so much stuff to kind of wade through. Yeah, I mean it's a it's a deep class. You could even, there are some people who really like Spencer Rattler. Uh Not in like in that top six, whatever. Like it might be a second round pick, might be a third round pick, but an intriguing prospect. But we know a handful of these are not going to work out. I try not to call them busts because I think the organizations are equally accountable in this bust rate. But like, again, I feel like corny continuing to harp on the draft and develop thing, but like that and develop part of that phrase is just so damn important, that like you have to get the right guy. Like a lot of these guys at this point are so polished, they're so clean, like there's enough there to work with. It's just, can you get them in the right organization and the right system to make sure that those tools are able to translate into an NFL level?
Elliot Wolf, Jeff, I'm not sure what you have heard about him, but how aggressive do you think he will be? You just talked about if they're going to deal a 3 pick, it would be a massive haul. So he's not going to be ultra aggressive to move that pick because of the things we've already talked about. But let's say they're sitting there at 34 and they have somebody that might be sexy to them in the 20s, maybe even later, right? Maybe even later in the draft. How aggressive in moving around, no matter what happens at 3, do we think Elliot Wolf will be in this draft?
Well, he just worked with Bill Belichick for a little while, and Belichick was no stranger to moving around the board. So I think there are going to be some of those tendencies, and there's I think they're going to be comfortable with their collaboration and being, knowing who they like and where. It's there's another sort of intriguing element in recent years with the draft where those late round picks are not viewed in as high of regard. Now it's hard to say that and say, all right, well, you can throw them away, but like who on the other side is taking them? So,
Right.
but like if you are, if like you go, let's say you go quarterback at 3 and your tackle prospects that you like are, kind of falling off the board and you realize, oh my goodness, like the last guy left is there and they're on the 25th pick and you got to move up. Yeah, I mean that's somebody that you kind of want to make sure that you move up for. I mean, you don't want to run out of tackle prospects at this point. That is not a good spot to put a rookie quarterback in, where they're constantly running for their life. So I could see that. I don't think they necessarily would need to move up at 34 if you're going to go the receiver route, because I think there's going to be that deep or probably third tier of player at that point. And the third tier in this year's draft is good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, aggressive at 34 is fine as long as you're doing it. I would think, again, there's certainly an element of unpredictability, but you probably want to answer that tackle question with that second pick, wherever it ends up being.
Jeff Howe with us from The Athletic, of course. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Like the channel if you enjoy the content. If you enjoy this podcast with Jeff, give us that thumbs up. All the likes count a ton. Trying to expand the community. Don't forget to subscribe as well. We're just over 3,000 subscribers, trying to hit 3,500. We'll be jam-packed next week for the draft, too, so you want to stay tuned for that. We'll have more with Jeff in a minute, but first, before I get to a few final questions with Jeff, I wanted to bring up again your charity event you have. It's coming up, and I think it's a week from Sunday. Just tell the people about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, thanks. Once again, benefiting one mission, which is an outstanding organization here locally in the Boston area that helps kids and their families as they battle a cancer diagnosis. This is the 3rd year that we've had this particular fundraiser. It's April 28th, Sunday, right after the draft from 10 to 2 at Wamisit Lanes in Tewksbury. And you can get, it's pinned to my Twitter feed at this point, but you can get tickets online early. You can get them at the door if you need to. And I'm just going to run through some of the raffle items that we have, raffle and auction items. A lot of this stuff is going to be up for the silent auction. We've got an autographed Gerard Mayo jersey. We've got an autographed Bruins jersey signed by the entire team. We've got an autographed Jason Tatum basketball that is absolutely gorgeous. We've got an autographed Revs jersey from the whole team, plus 4 tickets to a game, a Brian Bayo autographed baseball. We've got a full-sized Aaron Donald autographed helmet. This guy is going to be in Canton in 5 years, so that helmet is going to be really cool to have. A Cooper Kupp mini helmet autographed, Matthew Stafford autographed football, 4 tickets to the Zach Bryan show at Gillette Stadium this summer. I know I'm forgetting some stuff, but we got a whole bunch of cool things to come in and bid on and try to win with some local businesses in the area. We'll have some beer and booze prizes. Wamisit Lanes, if you're unfamiliar with it, bowling, golf bays, arcade, full bar and restaurant. We had it here last year. My friend runs the place. It's a really, really cool spot. It's going to be a great day. We had a blast last year, and we've got some other cool surprises, some cool surprises for everybody who shows up on time. It's going to be a really, really fun day. And it's going to benefit an outstanding cause.
Absolutely. And check it out on Jeff's Twitter. That's happening again a week from Sunday. So be on the lookout for that. All right. Just a few final questions before we bid you adieu today, Jeff. You mentioned collaborate, and Elliot Wolf met with the media this morning. I'll have my thoughts on Wolf's press conference on tomorrow's podcast. But, he talked about the collaboration and the circle kind of tightening to himself, Mayo, Matt Groh, and whichever coordinator that they need in the room in that moment to talk about a pick. What do you make of the collaboration? Do you think this is going to work? And have you heard about the Patriots' approach from anybody and what they think about it?
Yeah, that was a big word in 2021 when they had a pretty good draft class. And, maybe some of it's fallen off. Of course, the Mac Jones thing didn't work out well for reasons we don't need to rehash. But collaboration is incredibly important. I mean, you can't have a sole voice making that pick. I did see, I didn't see the entire news conference this morning, but I did see one quote that I really liked. It was like, if I'm the only person who likes a player, and everybody else is telling me no, like I'm not going to pick that player. Like that would be a problem. So like that's a good thing to have. And he was big in the collaboration or he was prominent in that collaboration approach 3 years ago. And I think there's a lot of people who are still held over from that front office a few years ago who were instrumental in making sure their voices were heard. So I think it's going to be a lot more of that than what we've seen for, good chunks of other parts of recent drafts when there was a sole voice of authority. And, sometimes it didn't necessarily please everybody else, as particularly in the scouting department. So collaboration is absolutely huge. And I think it's paramount in every draft room.
Any shot of a trade for a veteran wide receiver next weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's realistic. The two big names, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, have been sort of like, what's everybody checking on? We saw how aggressive they were in trying to get after Calvin Ridley. That didn't work out. So, yeah, I mean, having a veteran on that roster would be absolutely important. And I think Elliot Wolf even admitted that this morning.
Last one for you, Jeff. Give me a bold prediction. Could be random. Just give me it could be Patriots related. It could be draft related with the rest of the NFL. Give me a bold prediction on Thursday night.
I think I'll tease this because it's something I'm still sort of working through, but there is a team very early in the top 10 that everybody's kind of looking at one position, and it's a very prominent position. But I think that it's a massive smokescreen, and I think one of the biggest stars of the draft could be heading somewhere where people aren't necessarily looking at. And I'm not talking about the Patriots.
Ooh, all right. The ultimate tease from Jeff Howe. He's Jeff Howe. Check him out. Athletic. does great work at The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter as well at Jeff P. Howe. And of course, he's got the charity event coming up a week from Sunday, which you want to not forget about. Check out those prizes, man. Those auction items. My freaking goodness. Jason Tatum signed basketball. Aaron Donald signed helmet. Some legit stuff there. Love having you on as always, Jeff. That'll do it for us today. Don't forget to give us that like. That thumbs up on YouTube means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Rate and review. We'll be back tomorrow. If something big breaks, I'll be back later today. But the plan is tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll take a look at the Elliott Wolf press conference in depth. We'll also slide in some Celtics and Bruins playoff preview action as well. Until tomorrow, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.